his life revolved around. He had checked off all the boxes. He had the education, he had the experience, he had all the right contacts, and then life took a shocking detour. In his book, Clear, this is the book, Clear, we'll get back to this in a second, but I want to read to you a little bit from the beginning of the book. Herman screamed his beautiful fiancée, Jeannie, as he lay lifeless on a gymnasium floor. How could a healthy 31-year-old collapse during an afternoon basketball game with his fellow medical residents? No pulse, they shouted. He's not breathing. When the paramedics arrived shortly thereafter, their defibrillator didn't work. As it turned out, I mean, this was a traumatic experience, but as it turned out, Herman survived. As you can see on the screen, Herman survived, and that was 25 years ago. Now, his memoir entitled Clear, which I'm holding up here, Clear. First of all, you can see all the little sticky notes. That's when I read a book, I put the sticky notes on anything that I think is a really important fact that I want to remember. So you can see it's covered with them. Clear, living the life you didn't dream of, describes how Herman, who was depressed and disabled, just refused to give up. So he reinvented himself. Hello again, I'm Jim Alkon, editorial director of BookTrib, the leading source of book news and reviews, and I'm pleased to welcome today as our guest, Herman Williams. Herman, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Jim. Thank you, and I appreciate being on the show with you.
Terrific. Well, great to have you. I guess a great place to start is to say things in life don't always work out the way you plan, do they?
No. In my case, it's been quite circuitous, but I guess one of the things I want the listeners to go away with is you still have to go back and count your blessings. It didn't happen the way you wanted it, but it's been a true blessing. I've just keep telling myself I've got nothing to complain about. It didn't happen the way I thought, but I've had an incredibly wonderful life.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to that terrifying moment, which where the book starts and it just sucks you in. Give us the background and describe a little bit what happened.
The book is based on the premise where we all have dreams, and it's really important. Your parents tell you, dream big, you can be whatever you want to be. I had those kinds of parents, and I believe them, and I set these super ambitious goals. And like many people, I goofed off and fell shy of doing what I was supposed to do to make those happen. And once I finally got my act together and I studied, I worked hard, got into medical school after my third attempt, and people were telling me, give up. I said, no, I'm gonna be a doctor. And then I set my sights. I said, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. And people are like, you'll never get into orthopedics. You're crazy. And I worked hard. I got the right contacts. I had incredible mentors. Doors open, things happen. And finally, I was literally building this structure to become an orthopedic surgeon. And I set my sights on being one of the team doctors for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I knew that this sports medicine fellowship program that serviced the Lakers was within clear grasp. I actually
just what around the time frame, just who were the Laker players at the time, just so we have a sense.
This was Magic Johnson, Worthy, those guys, Larry Bird years. This was happening then. I rotated with the team doctor for the Los Angeles Rams, who worked for that program. He was a personal mentor. He wrote me a recommendation. I mean, it was like I could taste it. So this dream that 10 years prior was like, yeah, right, you're going to be what? It was within grasps. It was literally, all I had to do was find out if I'm going to get into this fellowship program. And I submitted my application in March of 1991. And in April of 1991, I had a cardiac arrest and everything went poof. So I just I mean, everything was just snatched. And of course, we're going to talk more about that, but that was the journey. What do you do when that happens?
What, you know, I don't even, I'm not even sure I want to ask, but what kind of thoughts went through your mind at the time? I mean, and obviously you weren't talking about, oh, there goes my career. You're thinking, am I going to live? What's happening to me?
Yeah, as I think back on it now, it was just denial. I did not grasp the gravity of how much my life would change. In my mind, I survived this event. They had medication for it. Subsequently, while I was in the hospital, I found out they had an investigational device that was an implantable surgical defibrillator that I'd have in my chest. So if it ever happened again, the way it was explained to me, oh, you just get shocked and boom, you're back and you're going to be okay. So, and I'm a doctor and I still didn't grasp, there's more to it than that. And what if the medication doesn't work? And what if the shock doesn't work? And, and what if you get defibrillated while you're operating? And I mean, all these little things that I had to grapple with later did not occur to me until about 6 months later, after I had the cardiac arrest, left the hospital, and the medication they put me on didn't hold me. And the defibrillator that they put in me was shocking me to the tune of, I got over 45 shocks in the first 6 months, which, by the way, is not compatible with life. The defibrillator is not intended to be the treatment. The defibrillator is supposed to be the ultimate backup if the medication fails. So I soon discovered, one, it was going to take a while for us to figure out what worked. Two, I couldn't operate anymore because I couldn't run the risk of getting shocked while I was operating on someone. And then all of a sudden, the question of, well, are you going to even be able to be a clinician came up. And then all of a sudden, the reality hit. Your life is going to be significantly changed. So,
well, I was going to say, at some point, when you realize, okay, this matter has stabilized, even though it's not going away, I am living with this condition, but now let's take a step back. Is it still feasible to do what I have dreamt I'd want to do all this time? And when you start, how do you start thinking that might not be possible? I've got to start looking elsewhere.
Right around 6 months, went back to the program, but it became clear to me, the medication I was taking for my heart, one of the side effects was blurred vision. So I couldn't see. I remember clearly I was operating on a patient and we were getting near the end of the case. I mean, I was a resident.
Yeah.
But the attending said, I need you to close. And I remember telling him, I can't see. And so I had to leave the case because my eyes got blurred and I literally couldn't see. So I eventually had to make the decision not to complete my surgical training, and began to come to grips with, I was deemed 100% disabled. And I have to say that, for our listeners out there, society in some ways prefers to put you in a box, and the box they put me in is you're disabled. So you're disabled, go collect your disability payment and stay at home and just deal with it. And I was like, but I want to get back to work. But there were lots of incentives that are designed to keep you in a comfortable state, because once you're not disabled anymore, you lose that payment. Well, how do you get back on your feet again? And, I was blessed. I had resources. I had family, my parents, my father moved in with us. I had all kinds of resources that many people don't have to get them out of that state of depression and out of that state of disability.
Was there some kind of label that you felt that people were perceiving you differently, or they looked at you differently, or just thought about you differently, or even if they didn't, that were you perceiving that they did?
I don't think so. And I think, even when I go to the doctor today, I have doctors look at my medical record and they're like, I'm sorry, did you bring the patient with you? So I don't look, as sick as I was at that time. And I don't look like a person who has the heart disease that I have. So I don't think I was ever put in a box. But as we use my story as a metaphor, those people who have physical traits, either you're in a wheelchair or you've aged because of your disease, you can be put in a box, and people have certain expectations or lack thereof based on what they perceive before you open your mouth and before you start to do your work. I've been blessed. Again, as I've said, we start out with positive, that I have not been restricted. If anything, I've been supported and enhanced and reached out to. And so it's been a different life for me.
But I want to continue this dialogue, but tell me about the title Clear. It's all capital
Yeah.
letters, it's in quotes, exclamation mark, and it's got this squiggly little line underneath.
Right. So if you can hold the book up a little closer to the camera, what the book is, it says clear, because that's what they say when they are getting ready to defibrillate a patient, so that everybody can not touch the patient. Because if you're touching the patient and they shock the patient, you'll get shocked. And what's surrounding the letters are defibrillator paddles, and those squiggly lines are current. And then you see that's actually my X-ray superimposed on the cover of the book.
Ah.
And the yellow outline is the defibrillator that I have with the wires and the patches that are sewn around my heart. So the book was clear for clearing with that, but it was also for the clarity that I gained around the meaning of what I think life is, and people, and the importance of kindness and other of the things that I've experienced as a result of my illness. And of course, the tagline, living the life you didn't dream of, this is never what I thought I'd be doing. Obviously, I thought I'd be, team doctor for an NBA team.
Right. It's interesting. And I wanted to ask the question just to, pardon the pun, to clarify.
Right.
But really, it was interesting because some of the editors on BookTrib, not knowing the background of the story, thought that the word clear signified the second point that you made, not the literal, the defibrillator, but
Right.
literally the clarity that you were suddenly seeing in your life. That's how they interpreted it.
Exactly. So it's really a double entendre. It did provide clarity, but that's also I use that term because when they first came in to shock me and they stopped CPR, the defibrillator didn't work.
Right.
So I wanted to call attention to the fact that, the technology didn't work, and most people don't survive out of hospital cardiac arrest to begin with. But to have somebody doing CPR on you stop, they try and shock you, the defibrillator doesn't work, resume CPR, wait for another defibrillator, defibrillate you, and then resuscitate you is just, my friends who were there told me, we don't even know why we were continuing CPR. We didn't think you were going to make it, but we just did everything we could,
right,
to make sure that we gave you every chance.
No, that's what makes it all so harrowing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the life-changing revelation which you had, and correct me if I've got the timing off, but I don't think it happened right away. It seems like it happened much later, maybe after you settled into a career as a physician executive and a consultant, that you realized you were having another stroke. And I just want to quote from the book. You write, I was 55 years old and I had survived another catastrophic illness. But this time, I didn't fling open the doors to the boisterous pity party that I'd been holding inside my head for more than 2 decades. So tell us what went off in your head that was different this time?
Yeah, so you're right. You would think that after experiencing the first cardiac arrest, I would have appreciated the importance of family and support and everything. But I got back to a state of healthiness relatively quickly, and your body is such a master at denial that it just immediately, oh, now you're okay. There's no problem. And then due to what I'll call a medication error, my doctor and I had made a decision that I had been on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner, for many years. We made a decision that we thought aspirin would be just as effective. So we decided to go on aspirin, and I was on aspirin for 6 months. And unfortunately, there was some research to support that. It came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, but it wasn't applicable to me and my condition. And so what was happening is, over that 6-month period of time, I was slowly forming a small clot in my left ventricle. And when I was 55, I woke up one day with an active stroke. And I couldn't speak. And I was falling all over the place. And my wife called 911, and they brought me in, and they said, well, how long has this been going on? And we go, I don't know. We went to bed at 12, and now it's 7. And they said, well, if you can't remember when it started within 6 hours, we can't give you a clot buster. And they couldn't give me a MRI, because I had a defibrillator. And at that time, defibrillators, you can't put them in MRIs because of the magnetic field. So they said, we're going to have to send you upstairs on heparin, and it's in God's hands. And 3 days later, I was able to speak, and it just hit me. It's like, holy goodness, what does it take for people to understand how important this life is? Mm-hmm. And it was there that I developed my personal mission statement, and I just set out on a course to try and make a difference in other people's lives.
Tell us more about that. I wanted to get into the new mission. Sometimes, and again, I'm a little familiar with it, having read the book. And when I think about it and hear it in the book, it just seems so simple and so easy. But tell us about what that mission is. And
yeah, it's I laugh. First of all, I try and laugh at all of this, because if you can't laugh at it yourself, you just cry and be sad and miserable. And so I remember distinctly reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey when I was in business school in 1992. And Stephen Covey said, everybody needs to have a mission statement. And I was like, this is a bunch of crap. Who needs a mission statement? I'm not a company. But when I could speak after that stroke, it immediately became clear to me that I was going to make sure that every person I came in contact with, in some small or larger way, was going to be better off after they left me than before they met me. It's that simple. And you ask people, yes, anyone who knows me, it's either a joke or a pat on the back or open the door, or no matter how small. I think these things are all incremental, and they amount to happiness in other people's lives. And I'll just give you a couple of my little quibs. My wife, she just drives her nuts, because we're walking through the airport, and I see this guy with a box of Mike's pastries. I don't know if you've ever been to the North End in Boston, but the best cannolis in the universe are at Mike's Pastries. So I see this guy with this box of Mike's pastries, and I'm walking with my wife in the airport, and I lean her over, and we start walking toward this guy, and she's like, what are you doing? And I go up to the guy and I go, how much for the pastries, son? And the guy, he just starts laughing, because he knows how valuable they are. And I go, okay, $5, that's my final offer. And we just laugh, and I walk away, and I see these guys, they're continuing to laugh. Who is this man who came up to us? But I knew that made a difference in that moment for them. And I could tell they were still laughing and smiling, And that's all I try and do, is to try and impart with someone else a little something, a smile. I walk by someone, good morning, that little thing, because of all the crap we're all dealing with, could seriously make a difference in someone's life and in their day. And I'll give you one other example. I was getting my shoes shined in the airport, and this guy, he and I now are like great friends. But I was getting my shoes shined, and I was going for a job interview. And he was doing to me what I do to other people. He was like, well, what are you doing today? Oh, really? And that's great. And how do you feel about that interview? And you're going to get that job, man. Go get it, and he's making me, he's pumping me up, and I'm more excited. And I walk away, and he goes, have a great day, Mr. CEO. And I said, that's right, I am a CEO. And he changed my whole perspective. And we joke now. He still calls me Mr. CEO. But it was that little thing, that one word, that moment, that praise from anybody that would have made me feel 1,000 feet taller and more proud that day.
And sometimes it's so simple. There are some people that will say hello to anybody that they pass. There are other people that won't even make eye contact.
Yep.
And it's just a state of mind. I mean, we were just on vacation, and whenever we're on vacation, there are always 2 or 3 characters that you remember, or somebody that will do something, or just say, he was the nicest guy, he didn't have to do that. In this case, it was some guy behind, it was a gas station converted into a coffee shop, into a cafe. And it was just the greatest place, but they just seemed to be so happy with who they were. And when you're in the people business, of facing customers all day long, and just getting into dialogue and asking questions, and just you'll come away and you'll think, hey, that was damn good coffee, and you'll think, hey, those were the nicest people in there. And they enhance the day. And to your point, I want to leave with I want to improve their day, or make them feel a little better about having come in contact, or something like that, right?
And you'll never forget that. That moment is like consummated in your brain, and you'll never forget that. And that's what the mission is. And I've really fine-tuned it. Excuse me. The book also talks about the elevator moments, where you're in an elevator, and which is the best opportunity in the world to impart to a human being how important they are, because you're there for like 30 seconds. There's nothing but you and that person. And yet we pass up that opportunity all the time. I do stuff like, I'll go, man, you are so good looking today. Are you going on an interview? And people are like, oh, no, thank you. Or I'll say, look, I'll give you my tie for that tie right now. Whatever you could do to break the ice. And then that person walks out and they go, God, that was so nice. That person said that.
I mean, these little devices have given people a convenient way out, because you used to be able to you'd ride an elevator with somebody, they'd be about a foot away from you, and you just stare into space like they don't exist.
Now you pull out your phone.
And the idea was you were in some kind of deep thought, or something, or there must be something on your mind, as opposed to turning and saying, good morning, how are you?
Exactly. Yeah, now we're in our phones.
Right, but the phone makes it look like, okay, he's checking a message, which he doesn't really have to check. So how difficult was it to really hit the reset button? Because now you really have to turn the corner a little bit and say, I'm not going in one career path. Here's what my new mission is. Here's what my new career is going to be. Tell us about that.
It was difficult, and it continues to be difficult. But I tell people life is difficult. I've accepted that fact. And the advantage that I have over other people, I think, is that I've been challenged enough times where I feel like I'm going to be successful. So even in the most difficult times, when I'm in the ICU recovering, I'm like, well, I was in the ICU before, and I was in the hospital for 28 days and I got out. So I know I'm going to get through this. So I just kept building on the experiences of surviving and getting through. And I just have the most incredible wife in the world that has this strength that I mean, it is just, it's almost beyond human, who has supported me. And I just don't know how I would have done it without her. And, you know, coupled with all that together and the support and the love and the optimism and the faith and the belief, all
Right.
of that comes together to help you get up every morning and have that great attitude about what it is you're going to do today. But it takes a minute to develop that. And, you know, it took me, first of all, I had to get over, I had post-traumatic stress syndrome from being shocked 45 times and being awake. So just so people understand what that means, I have a defibrillator that's implanted surgically and it will deliver 45 joules of current, whether I'm awake or not, if it deems necessary. And it does not ask me for permission.
Right.
And it is incredibly noxiously painful.
Really.
And it comes very suddenly. And there were many times where I got 7 shocks. Once I got 25 shocks in succession, just because it couldn't stop the bad rhythm, and it just keeps
Really?
coming.
Yes.
So once I got past all that, and we found the right medication, and we could finally, we got medication that allowed us to at least sleep 8 hours, because we were on a medication that was every 4 hours. So we had to set the alarm to take the cardiac medication so it wouldn't wear off, so I wouldn't get shocked. So once we went through all of that, and oh God, these 2 young newlyweds going through all this crazy thing, you know, and finally life got a little normal. Then you start reaching out and you start doing more and you start getting promoted, and you know, and things expand, and then you wait for the next crises to occur. Now, I was really blessed. I didn't have a shock from 2004. I'm sorry. From 1994 to 2006.
Okay.
So that's a good, you know, that's 12 years of letting all of the anxiety go and kind of living a normal life. And then I got shocked, and then I didn't have a shock from 2006 for another 10 years.
Hmm.
So that's the way it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be a backup for that occasional, in case you get a breakthrough, it's there. And you just keep going. And of course, the meds have gotten better. So I feel the best I've ever felt today.
That's great.
So
I wanted to ask you, what was it like writing the book? Was it painful reliving this? Was it more therapeutic? Was it a little bit of both?
yeah, it was therapeutic, very therapeutic. It's one of the best things I've done. I will tell other people, I tell everyone, everybody has a story. So write a book, because there's so much to learn about life, and there's so much we could learn from each other. And I think it's really put me in a position where it garnishes a different level of respect when people say, you know, here's Herman Williams and this has happened, blah, 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 but he's written a book about it to tell us what we can learn. I mean, so it really has been very cathartic for me, and it's allowed me to put my thoughts on paper, and it seems to resonate well with what people are going through. And today especially, you know, it's about heart disease, but it really is about overcoming, you know, suffering and overcoming stress. And we are all very stressed today.
No, this is, you know, we probably talked about this when we were just discussing this interview, but if ever there was a time where people were looking for a voice to grab onto, or at least hearing some thoughts and ideas that resonate with them, that give them comfort, or even ideas to say, hey, you know what, I want to try to think like that as well. Boy, this is the time. We're just about out of time. You know, if there's a main message you'd like readers to take away from the book, what would you say it is?
I would say that even though you set dreams, specific dreams to do a specific thing, there could be a different path for you. And my path has turned out to be greater than I ever could have imagined. You know, I had this little simple, superficial dream, and there's nothing wrong with being a team doctor for a professional team, but I wanted it for status. And so it was an opportunity for me to identify a very superficial dream and find actually a more meaningful dream underneath that, which was to use my skill as a clinician and as a passionate and compassionate person to make a difference in other people's lives. And I think I've done that 100 times more than I ever thought I could have done. I couldn't have planned it like this. So I tell people, listen to what is your calling. And the minute you come in touch with that, I think you find peace. If you don't know why you're here and you're searching for meaning and why am I doing this job and why, you know, I think life, it's more difficult, but I think I know what I'm here to do. And it just makes me more grounded in what to do each day when I get up. And so it just, that would be my message, is to look out for what your true purpose is here and try and come in touch with that and do it.
No, that's great. And, you know, just in terms of the effect you have on other people, I don't know, you say this in the book, I don't know if you're the first person to say it, certainly not the only one, but you write, it costs nothing to smile. You know, and I just think that's such a beautiful line. It's a great comment. It's so easy. And so damn it, go ahead and do it.
That's
you know?
right.
That's all it takes. So listen, we are out of time. Again, Herman Williams, thanks so much for joining us today. The book again is Clear: Living the Life You Didn't Dream of. It's an incredible story. I encourage you all to check it out.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Alkon for BookTrib. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jim. Blessings.
Thanks, Herman.